One of the basic elements in any document is the paragraph. This video introduces you to two important aspects of formatting your paragraphs: line spacing and paragraph spacing. Line spacing is the term used by Word to designate the vertical space from the same point on one line to the same point on the next line within the same paragraph. Typically, this distance is measured from baseline to baseline, where the baseline is the non-printing reference line on which your characters rest. For those with a typographical background, line spacing is typically measured in points and is referred to as leading. I tend to use both line spacing and leading as synonymous terms. Word allows you to specify line spacing in points, but more often it is specified in lines or multiples of lines. To change line spacing for a paragraph, make sure the insertion point is within the paragraph that you want to affect, or select all of the paragraphs that you want to affect. Then, display either the Home tab of the ribbon or the Layout tab of the ribbon. And you're going to go ahead and click on the small icon right down here in the lower right corner of the paragraph group. This displays the paragraph dialog box as you can see on the screen. Line spacing is specified using these two controls in the dialog box. The default line spacing used by Word depends on the version of Word that you are using. You can see that in my version, the default is multiple, and that a value of 1.15 is set. This means that the line spacing is set to be 1.15 times whatever the line height is, as defined by the largest element on each line in the paragraph. So, let's say that I am using a 12-point font, which is rather typical. This means that my line spacing is 13.8 points, which is 1.15 times 12 points. If you use the drop-down list for line spacing, you can see that there are several different settings you can choose. 4 of these options, single, 1.5 lines, double, and multiple, calculate the line spacing based on lines. I already discussed how the multiple setting works, and the other 3 work similarly. The problem with line-based line spacing is that it can leave your paragraphs looking uneven and choppy, particularly if you mix fonts and point sizes within the same paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and press Escape to get out of the paragraph dialog box here so I can show you what I mean. Remember that my line spacing is calculated based on the largest font size used on each line. So I'm going to go back up here to this paragraph, and you can see that the font within this paragraph is set to use 11-point type. But what happens if I have a letter in here or something that's going to be a different size? Like, let's say this whole word here is set to be 18-point type. You can see that it's now larger, and it looks choppy within the paragraph because the calculation is done using the largest font on that line. This mixture of font sizes makes it easy to see the choppiness that I referred to. Well, I can attempt to correct this problem by choosing other line spacing settings, such as 1.5 lines or double. The best way, however, is to use one of the other 2 line spacing options, at least or exactly. These allow me to specify line spacing in points. When specifying specific line spacing for your text, you can follow an old typographical convention which states that line spacing should be 120% of the point size of your font. Thus, according to this rule, if the font you are using is 10-point Arial, your line spacing should be 12 points. Likewise, if you are using 28-point Courier, your leading should be 33.6 points. You can round this number to 34 points, even though Word accepts fractional point sizes in the @ box. Now remember that my paragraph that I'm working with here has a predominant font size of 11 points. So if I go and I display the paragraph dialog box here, I can specify that I want my line spacing to be exact, and I can then use the @ box over here to specify the size that I want to be used for that exact leading. Since I'm using an 11-point font in here, I can set this value to be 13.2, meaning 13.2 points, which is 120% of the 11-point font height. When I do this and I click OK, you can see that my paragraph closed up and I no longer have the choppiness that's been evident within this paragraph before. Now you know everything that there is to know about specifying line spacing for your paragraphs. I want to again display the paragraph dialog box and draw your attention to these two controls right over here. These don't do anything for individual lines. The before and after controls apply to the entire paragraph. The before control indicates how much space should be left before a paragraph, and the after control indicates how much space should be left after a paragraph. Both values are specified in points. You can see that in this particular paragraph, there is 0 points before the paragraph, but there are 10 points added after the paragraph. I can't tell you how many times I work with documents where the author adds space between paragraphs by pressing the Enter key, however many times he or she feels is necessary to get the desired spacing. This practice harkens back to using typewriters, where you needed to press the Enter or Return key multiple times to effect between paragraph spacing. Word gives you much greater control, however. All you need to do is to specify, using these two controls, exactly how much space you want either before or after your paragraph. Since you specify this distance in points, you have the ability to be very precise in your spacing. This can come in very handy when you need to offset a paragraph from the one before it or the one after it. For instance, we may want this particular paragraph to be indented by 1 inch on both the left and the right sides, which we can do with the left control and the right control right up here. We may also want it to be spaced by 1/2 inch from the paragraph before it and the paragraph after it. We specify the left and the right values using inches, but down here in the before and after, we specify it in points. And since there are 72 points in 1 inch, we can specify this using a value of 36 points for before and 36 points for after. When we then click on the OK button, you can see that the spacing we used is applied to the paragraph. Now you can also specify the before and after settings by displaying the Layout tab of the ribbon. And right here in the paragraph group, you can see that we have our indents set to 1 inch, and the before and after value are both set to 36 points, just like we set a few moments ago. If you work with the line spacing and paragraph spacing settings available in Word, you can have your paragraphs appear exactly as you want them on the printed page. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful. If so, be sure to subscribe to the Word Tips channel and click the bell icon so you are notified when new videos are added. Thanks for joining me today.